brought me here. This is not never where we usually go.
I've got to admit, it is not my ideal place to be. But I brought you here to demonstrate something. Here we've got great juggernauts belting down the motorway. And that's how today we transport all our goods. But if you could get into a time machine and go all the way back 250 years ago, it would have been done along a canal.
What?
And I tell you what, our canals are still here, well some of them are. Would you like to go on a bit of a journey to discover them?
Yeah.
Come on then.
Man-made? I know it sounds like a silly question, but I really want to know.
Well, yes, the simple answer is yes, canals are man-made, but it's not that simple, right? Look, I'll tell you what, now this canal we've got here is all dry, right? So this is one that's a derelict canal. So I'll show you a bit further down where we can get actually inside the canal, and I'll show you how they used to make them. All right, let's get away from all this noisy traffic, Come on. Whoa, 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 Sam, whoa, whoa, whoa. I want to go down here.
Oh.
Now, hang on a minute, hang on. Look, now we've come over the old canal to get to a spot where I can take you down the bank to show you how deep these canals were. All right, so let's get down there and I'll show you more. Just be careful as you go down. I think I've got the wrong shoes on. Oh, get ready to catch me. Oh, thank you. Oh, you are good, you are good. Wow, look at this. God, look how overgrown it all is. It's difficult to imagine that this had boats going up and down, barges. Now it's just got wildlife going up and down. It's wonderful, isn't it?
So why did they need so many canals?
Well, let's have a sit down. I'll explain to you. Let's have a sit down. Oh, that's it. When you get old, you have to have lots of sit downs. Well, if you think about it, if you've got to go back to the 18th and 19th century, they had the Industrial Revolution. Have you heard about it at school?
A bit.
It's a bit. It's when Britain was manufacturing. It was when they was the manufacturing hub of the world. They were producing all sorts of things. And somehow they needed to connect the mills and the coal mines together to move all this material. The only way before they started canals was on roads. So you had things like horse and cart, and that's bumpy old roads, and you couldn't take much in the way of haulage. It was difficult.
Why not just use rivers?
That's a good point. There were lots of rivers about, but they did have huge, great barges on the rivers, you know, like the Thames and the Trent and the Severn and rivers like that. But the problem is a river don't go sometimes where you want it to go. Yeah. And most of the industry was produced all around Birmingham or around Manchester, up in the northeast and that. So that meant that they had to dig out these canals so they could get these lovely big barges where they could carry tons and tons and tons of material from A to B. So in other words, they could get the coal along the canal to where it wanted to drive the steam engines, you know, the big mills.
Okay.
Now then, have you ever thought about this huge, great big canal? How on earth was it dug out?
Did they use a metal shovel?
Well, they most probably did, but in a different way. You're thinking about a great big machine. Well, they hadn't invented, because we're going back, that's 1750, around there, a long time ago. So this would have been dug out by shovel and pick. Could you imagine it? Digging this out. So you'd have an army of what we call navvies, and that was short for navigators, because they would dig all this out. And it took so long to dig all this out. You know, they used to have to live along the bank, and they had like literally towns, sheds all the way along where they lived. And it must have been hard work and dangerous work, you know. Oh. The other point that's worth mentioning while we're in the bottom of a canal is, have you ever had a bucket of water and you've poured it in a hole in the garden and seen what happens to the water?
Yeah, one time I tried to make a pond and it didn't go so well.
Did it just go straight through?
Yeah, it just dried up.
So what is stopping that not happening here?
Do you need a pipe or something?
You're close. What you need to do, you need a membrane, right? Like you put in the bottom of a pond. to stop the water escaping. So they used to bring in what we call puddle clay. This is thick clay, generally grey, thick clay. And they used to line the bottom so water couldn't escape. Now you had to puddle it. That's why it's called puddle clay. And you had to puddle it. And what they used to do, they used to bring herds of cattle and run them backwards and forwards down here. So the cattle puddled all the clay, and it took out all the air from the clay and made it so the water wouldn't escape. Oh. Marvellous. And you think all that work that's gone into this. And think there's thousands of miles of this all over the country, and look at it. But I tell you what, although we're sitting in this, the legacy is we are sitting in a wonderful little nature reserve. This is a green linear snaking away across the countryside. We've got arable fields all around us, but look at this, full of wildlife. Wonderful, isn't it? Right, come on, let's go. We can't sit here all day. Oh. Right, which way are we going?
This way.
No, let's go back. Hey, wait for me.
I'm out of breath.
I tell you what, walking these canals don't half take it out on you when you're getting on a bit. It's all right for you young ones. Oh, look at this, it's brilliant. Do you know, I don't think I've ever seen a reed bed as big as this. You'd have to go to Norfolk to find them like this. This is fantastic. Now, when I was a lad, we would call the local canal the cut because it cuts through the land. So, you know, I used to tell my parents, I'm going down the cut. So you can go and tell your dad that. I bet he wouldn't understand what you're talking about now, would he? But what's happening here is the wet area, which is slowly getting silted up, will eventually turn to dry land, and then you'll get things like shrubs and trees growing. But at the moment, it's full of, this is called Phragmites, right? Oh. The Norfolk reed, or the common reed. And it's marvellous. I mean, for wildlife, this is brilliant. I mean, as we come down, I've heard coots, I've heard moorhens, but in the nesting season, you get willow warblers, reed warblers. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It looks like a tropical rainforest, but just in a canal.
You said it, didn't you? Wow, look at this. Anyway, come on, let's go under the bridge. It looks a lot clearer under there. Come on. You had to do it, didn't you? Well, if you're doing it, I'm doing it. Echo! Mine's louder than yours.
Aww.
It's such a shame, isn't it, that this is all silting up. I mean, look at this. 250 years ago, boats were going up and down here. But it's good for nature. I mean, look at all these reeds. And there's frogs over there. And I can see dragonflies. Oh. There's snails. Look at the different types of snails. Oh. It's big, and there's some minnows over there. Oh. So, you know, it's just great for wildlife, isn't it?
Yeah.
Come on, let's see what else we can find. Oh, Sam, we've got to stop here just for a few moments and look at this magnificent 18th century canal bridge. Look at the span. Oh, and the other thing, can you see down there, look, where ropes been pulled by generations of horses pulling the barge along have caused them marks. Let's take a closer look. Oh, do you know what amazes me before we look at that? You look at this bridge and think, how many people have walked backwards and forwards across here, and horses and carts. Marvellous. Now this here shows you where, like I say, the barges were pulled along by the horses and the ropes cut into this great lump of limestone. Let's go and have a look at the other side as well. Yeah, you can see where it's cut in this side as well. So of course the boats will be pulled this way and pulled that way. Marvellous.
Before we go, why is it so wide over there?
Right, well this will be what you call a basin. And a basin is where you can park barges. And of course these barges were big things and they would have been pulled along here. And if they wanted to pass, they could go to one side. Or it might be towards the end of the day where they want to have a cup of tea and a kip. So this will be perfect. It's called a basin. Just before we do disappear, one of the things that I haven't, or you perhaps haven't noticed, there's no towpath on that side. All along canals you have towpaths because it's where the horses towed the barges. And there's only a towpath on this side. And if you look across there, there's no rope markings, but on this side, there's rope markings. There's so much to talk about canals, isn't there? One of the things that fascinates me is the engineers that designed these, and of course the navvies that dug them out. They followed the contours of the land, so it would be perfectly flat, so the water would stop in there. Oh, and incidentally, what topped these up, they had their own reservoirs and their own rivers to top them up.
Yeah.
So they're perfectly level.
And also, how would a boat get up a hill?
You're not as daft as you look, are you? They did it by what we call stairways for boats. Do you want me to show you one?
Yeah.
Come on then.